So 2023 so far has been a fun one for me personally. Early in the year, I attended the virtual version of the Sundance Film Festival, and I got to see a bunch of films in a short amount of time. Some of them that are on my list, and others that are a part of my theater experience or my video on demand experience. My AMC A-List subscription has helped me through the blockbuster explosion of the summer. As of recording for this video, I have enough to go through my current top 10 at the moment. So sit back and enjoy while I explain my favorite films of the year so far. Let's get started. So let's face it, I have too many honorable films to highlight. I can go through a lot, and some of them are heavy hitters like Asteroid City, Dungeons & Dragons, Knock at the Cabin, Scream 5, Evil Dead Rise, Missing, Air, Nimona, Creed 3, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Or I can shout out to the other smaller films on my list like My Mutual Sect, or even other independent or foreign films like Tori and Lukita, One Fine Morning, Infinity Pool, Godland, No Bears, The Beasts, Five Devils, Air, Showing Up, etc., etc. That would be way too many, but I want to shout out to the other films on my list because a lot of them have impacted me in so many ways. You can also check out my letterbox for all my current rankings and my reviews for all my listed films. But for now, here's my top 10 so far. So I saw this with a good friend of mine in New York City's Lincoln Square, and I was intrigued by the reviews coming out from TIFF for this. Erotic thrillers have been hitting a high with me this year. There's another one that I will mention on this list, but for now, Sanctuary is a sexy and fascinating tale about two sexy people who are stuck with their current living situation. Rebecca, who's played by Margaret Qualley, is a sex worker who's hired to please a CEO of a hotel. Hal, who's played by Christopher Abbott, is the owner of the hotel, and basically it's a bottle film mainly due to it being set in a hotel room. And from there, you get to see the sexiness and backstabbing between both characters, so much that it turns into a narrative about taking control of a situation, specifically being a dominatrix in both sexual and modern life. Both characters want to take control of their lives, but are constantly lying to each other. Abbott and Qualley are both firecrackers ready to explode at any moment, and there's never a dull moment in this 90-minute feature. So if you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend it. So this is another erotic thriller that I saw this year, specifically at the virtual version of the Sundance Film Festival. Unfortunately, I don't have any clips of this due to the fact that it's being acquired by Netflix, and as of the recording of this video, there's no release date for this film. But what I can tell you is that Fair Play is kind of like Sanctuary, but more tantalizing. Alden Ehrenreich and Phoebe Denver both play co-workers and lovers in the stock trading industry. Their relationship is hidden from their workplace, mainly due to the fact that they both come at each other in a less professional way. The jealousy and backstabbing starts to happen when Emily gets her promotion at the firm, and from there you get to see the couple gaslight each other into sexual or even no sexual behaviors and unprofessional favors. I was extremely impressed by the presentation and rawness of the characters' relationships with each other. Alden, who was really good in Solo, is memorizing in this dude bro frat type of role. Also at the same time, you kind of feel his character and also get really annoyed by him. And you can also say the same thing about Emily. This movie in general feels like an episode of Succession, but with more sexual behaviors and lots of like insider trading language and hierarchy power plays. But at the same time, I really felt the rawness of this film. And when this comes out on Netflix, I highly recommend you stream it and you go in cold, don't look at the plot, just go for it, just like I did at Sundance. Canada has been on my mind for quite some time. Xavier Dolan opened up the floodgates in terms of portraying Quebecian life on the big screen. Hence why I'm always searching for new films in this area. Riceboy Sleeps doesn't take place in Quebec, but is also a part of this new Canadian new wave. Anthony Shim's second feature is about a young Korean boy growing up in Vancouver with his mom. His mother is an immigrant and is trying to get accustomed to the Canadian life. She works in a factory and she's constantly being taken advantage of due to her language barrier. There's microaggressions that plague both between the son and the mother. And although you can compare this to Minari, this film takes more of a meditative route. There's a lot of beautiful long takes and gorgeous cinematography to stand out from the rest of the pack. Even the 4x3 presentation is reminiscent of Xavier Dolan's style of filmmaking, and it feels like his presence is looming in a bunch of these Canadian features. I actually have another one in my list, but for now, if you're really into like quiet character pieces, I think this might do the trick. Now, I saw this earlier in the year, and I've been meaning to check this one out after the rave reviews from Cannes. This main actress in the film has been on my radar since Ashghar Farhadi's The Salesman and about Ellie. I've always wanted to go deeper into Iranian cinema, so this was just a treat on its own. So yeah, like I'm happy to report this is a fucking banger and quite possibly one of my favorite screenplays of the year so far. This director's layered story about escaping eternal poverty is quite a thrilling adventure. You have Leila, who's broke, and her family's also broke as well. Both of them decide to scheme their way into starting a business. One of the family's brothers starts the business, and then it just turns into a whole explosion of just extended family dynamics and the way of trust being messed up. The actress in this film gives a great performance as always, and the director plays the morality games through tension. This basically does feel like a Farhadi film, mainly because of the fact that it's pretty ironic that Farhadi has a lot of his artsy kind of aesthetics implemented into Iranian cinema, and it's also very ironic due to the fact that he's being tried for stealing a bunch of ideas from different artists. So yeah, it's pretty hilarious, but also due to the fact that this is also just a great watch in general, especially if you haven't been locked into Iranian cinema. So yeah, highly recommend it. I mean, listen, man, I don't really have to go deep into Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, because mainly this is just like one part of a storyline, and Tom Cruise is always on fire with the actions and stunts. Christian McQuarrie is just a journeyman with his directing. He lives for the shit. Same with Cruise. The action set pieces are all great, especially the final sequence that involves a train derailment. As a whole, I can't really judge it. However, from what I saw, it continues the legacy and appeal of the franchise, while also being consistent and fun at the same time. But yeah, by now, like, everybody has seen it. I don't really have to beg people to see it. It's already a staple right now. And it's basically just like the Top Gun Maverick of the year. So yeah, that's it. Okay, guys, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I actually don't get this film in some aspects. At the same time, this is one of those films that will probably never get funded again. A24 spent $35 million on the production budget and it flopped. This was never going to appeal to the four quadrants. However, it might appeal to some A24 fans and people who have a crazy sense of humor, just like me, and that's probably why I mess with this film. Joaquin Phoenix is on top of his A game with this very sick performance. He's either crying hysterically from what's coming at him, or he's either contemplating his journey to find his mother's house. Beau Is Afraid is a singular visual experience spearheaded by Ari Aster, a director who I've loved since Hereditary and Midsummer. This takes more of his dark humor and amplifies it to like 100%. Every situation Beau gets into is purely surreal and over the top, and it's a Kaufman-esque odyssey with a lot of like visual craziness. There's a beautiful animated segment halfway through the film, and it's basically just 3 hours of just like pain, suffering, and just hilarity. And you get like a big twist at the end, even though it just prematurely ends with like a sudden thud. Most of your questions will never be answered. Ari just kicks you in the fucking nuts and laughs at you for questioning his authority on Beau's frantic life. This is one of those films that I can't really recommend to people. However, if you're really tired of like the blockbuster explosion of this year, this is a very nice refreshment. So I basically mentioned this in my written review for this film. This is basically Call Me By Your Name, but for the straights. And I actually truly mean it. Falcon Lake takes place during the summer in a lake in Canada. A young boy meets an older girl. They embark an emotional and sensual journey. Charlotte Le Bon blends reality and fiction through showing ghostly matters. Baston is afraid of ghosts and is constantly being chased by them, either metaphorically or in a realistic sense. Le Bon doesn't give a clear indication of why that is happening, and that's the pure beauty of this film. Also, just like Riceboy Sleeps, Falcon Lake utilizes film stock and visual language to showcase both main characters' infatuations with each other. It's a bit risque and voyeuristic at times. Only some people can pull it off, and I think this director did a very good job with it. And also this year so far, I've seen a lot of like great child acting, but this takes the cake. So if you mess with Call Me By Your Name, then this should be right up in your radar. So this is another film that I don't really need to go deep into because everyone has seen it by now. It was a smash hit at the box office. It's one of the best films in the series. Keanu Reeves gives his all as the character. Set pieces and stunts are at a prestigious level of pristineness. Wick goes everywhere, around the world, beating everyone's ass, and it's still a brutal and violent film. Where it ends is a perfect place to end the franchise, even though I would love to see more of these films. But yeah, for now, it's basically done. Once again, this is another film that I don't really need to go deep into, mainly because it's part one. Across the Spider-Verse will be the best animated film by the end of the year. I don't really see it being dethroned at this point in time. And on top of that, it's just a purely entertaining adventure. The animation is both experimental and vibrant. There's a bunch of animated styles thrown in there, from expressionism to stop motion animation. All the voice acting is top notch, the best I've ever heard in a long time. I really mess with this film. I can't wait for part two, although it might be delayed due to the strikes that are going on as the recording of this video. So yeah, just like everyone take a breather. It'll come eventually. And when it does come, it'll be fucking awesome. Past Lives is a slow burn romance that exploded at this year's Sundance. Although this wasn't a part of a virtual itinerary, Past Lives has made a splash and has gained momentum since its release in theaters. This film is reminiscent of Richard Linklater's Before trilogy, in the sense those films were about the nature of romantic relationships and longing for them. This film deals with two Koreans who grow up with each other. One of them moves to America for a better life, while the other one stays at home. The film time jumps between from the beginning of their relationship and their friendship all the way through their reconnection in America. Greta Lee plays the woman who moves away from South Korea for a better life. Nora, who's played by Greta Lee, like many other immigrants in America, are basically stuck with their reminiscence of their past lives, and their culture is in their blood and their DNA. So when Nora reconnects with Hae Sung, played by Yoo Tae-oh, it's a bit awkward, yet it's also very charming because you get to see those lives come back in real time. Celine Song's debut is a stunner, solely because of how attentive and honest the storytelling is. As a debut feature by itself, it's quite an achievement. Last year's Aftersun was also a part of this quiet, understated journey. Song doesn't mess around with Nora or Hae Sung's emotions, it's pretty upfront. It asks the questions of longing for someone, while also showing how it affects other people's lives. Arthur, played by John Magro, is married to Nora, and they both have this beautiful conversation about what would have happened if Nora married Hae Sung. And it's told in such a respectful way that it's almost emotionally scarred me. The final scene tugs the heartstrings. A24 knows how to market and appeal to cinephiles like me, and I think this film is a great entry into their catalog. So if you want to see something that's very realistic, I think this is the one for you. If you would have told me that a film about Barbie would be in my top 10 films of the year so far, I would have laughed, but it's the truth. Greta Gerwig's Barbie is such a romp and more. Both Greta and Noah Baumbach craft a colorful take on Barbie with such originality and attention to detail to the IP. Sure, there's a bombardment of feminist ideas throughout the film, but it doesn't overtake the film and make it into a gender study lesson. It actually lays out feminism in the most simplistic terms, while also making fun of the culture itself. Barbie was called a fascist and a catalyst for body image issues throughout the film, but it makes fun of it lightly. Margot Robbie is fucking fantastic at this. Without her, this would be nothing. She is Barbie, the stereotypical Barbie who has an existential crisis and is forced to leave Barbie world to find her own way of living. Meanwhile, Ken, played by Ryan Gosling, does the same thing as he tries to figure out his manhood, and both of them are amazed and sort of bewildered by the world's way of thinking, our real world, in fact. I could get deeper into this film, but I would be spoiling it. Ryan Gosling has been on a roll lately. This basically solidifies him as one of the best actors out there. He's very hilarious in this and has great chemistry with Margot Robbie. And even all of the supporting Kens and Barbies are also dope in this. And furthermore, Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie is also a highlight for me. Finally, America Ferrera's performance is also poignant and full of life. Her monologue near the end of the film solidifies the main central theme of the film. So yeah, if you haven't been interested in the Barbie brand, there's something to enjoy about this film. Give it a spin. As much as I loved Tenet, Christopher Nolan hasn't been on his A-game in terms of reeling mainstream audiences. Dunkirk was great, but it was also very technical and operatic. Oppenheimer is a return to form to Nolan's greatest roots. It feels like Memento with its conflicting timelines, but it's also very unique on its own grounds. Cillian Murphy plays a subjective version of the main character, while after the bomb drops, you get to see the objective version through black and white cinematography. Robert Downey Jr. plays Louis Strauss, the main villain and the catalyst of Oppenheimer's nightmares. Both actors play play their roles extremely well. I was particularly impressed by RDJ's commitment to being such an asshole. You rarely get to see him try different roles, but it's going to happen now that he's free from the Marvel Universe. And it's also dope to see Cillian Murphy finally have his big leading role ever since he was been working with Christopher Nolan for over a decade. There's also some great supporting roles in this. All of them are either big or small. I can't really name all of them because they're such a surprise. Matt Damon plays himself as the humorous guide for the audience. Meanwhile, Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh are a bit understated in their respective roles. They don't really have anything to do, and that's been a problem with Nolan's writing with women. However, Blunt has a great interrogation scene near the end of the film that's pretty Oscar-worthy. So yeah, overall, this was fucking great. I think Nolan has returned to his roots, and hopefully he can make something just like this. So these were my favorite films of the year so far. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video around. If you want to share your own top 10, you can comment below. Follow my socials while you can. Thanks. See you next time.